to bring in politics to the soccer, right?
Yeah, I had to talk about, you mean talking about any anime with a military academy? Like,
Oh
why
man.
am I making it political?
Yeah, so welcome to our talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc V. Uh, if,
Also also known as Yu-Gi-Oh! Now with motorcycles in space because we needed more gimmicks to play cards.
you filthy casual, that's 5Ds.
Oh, you're right.
Our games on motorcycles is 5D. I think that's which one.
Listen, after Jaden lost his duel to a time-warped Yugi to prove that Yugi is still the best Duel Monsters player ever, like, what is the point of investing if he can't be beaten? What is the point of a belief system where there is always something greater than you?
You mean like, oh, do I want to go there?
Hmm.
I don't know if I want to go there. At least not this early. I need to build to that.
This will be a very jarring episode to premiere a guest on.
Mm. So we're going to talk about how capitalist systems will take medical technology and use it to kill you. Um, Also known as Mobile Suit Gundam, the Witch from Mercury.
And I'm Eric.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know next to nothing about Gundam, but I have started watching Witch from Mercury on Robert's suggestion, and I have began delving into the greater timelines. I'm still trying to get to the Universal Century, but I'm working on it. As a Star Trek fan, I feel like I'm used to alternate timelines, so I feel good. I feel
Why
confident.
didn't you start with the Universal Century? What's wrong with you?
Because it was new. It's like a Doctor Who. Every time a new Doctor is announced, I have the hope that maybe I can get into the show and stay there before getting frustrated that there are no rules and whatever rules are set up are broken.
So you're saying Gundam doesn't play by the rules because the Gundam is Doctor Who. That's what I got from that statement.
I guess that's what I'm saying. Like, I
And
haven't
I,
gotten into Farscape yet, so maybe that will be my next like fandom I take issue with.
or you need to watch everything in the Universal Century. Do you know how much that is?
Okay, so that's Gundam, Gundam War in the Pocket, Gundam Unicorn, Char's Counterattack, Zeta Gundam, the other Zeta Gundam? Was that the third series?
Easy. I just say it's easy.
Oh yeah, and then Gundam, Turn Gundam. So seven. That's seven series. Seven.
Nope.
Is there
It's
more?
I
I
mean,
counted
so
Gundam
starting with
Unicorn, right?
yeah, you got Unicorn, but like there's a lot that's there's still a lot more. Um because they're so Mobile Suit Gundam, the original,
Uh,
and then which is about the 1 year war. Um, you said War in the Pocket, which is around the same time frame. There's also the Eighth MS team.
oh, that's
Um,
right.
um, I kind of Thunderbolt, even though I think it's all kind of like alternate continuity of the Universal Century because it doesn't really fit anywhere. I'm probably gonna forget. I'm definitely gonna forget something.
I think based on what I counted, so with MS and kind of Thunderbolt, so we have nine and a half.
Yeah, and that still seems short
Oh,
because because after the 1 year war ends, then we have the events of Stardust Memories, or I almost said Stardust Crusaders. Now I don't. I'm not sure what it's.
maybe
Top
it's
Gun with
the
Gundam.
maybe you meant Stardust Waltz, the recollections of Woody Allen in the seven in 1979 before the event.
Event, yeah.
Yeah. before
but
the Roman Polanski crimes.
yeah. Hey, let's get his rich friends to write a petition so that he doesn't get arrested as soon as he comes back to the United States. No, no, justice doesn't forget. Um, but yeah.
But do
Stardust
Gundams
memories
forget?
using the Zeta. Gundams don't, they're robots.
Yeah.
The AI remembers how you pilot it to help you in the future. At least I think that's what the explanation of a Gundam was in the first one in the original series. But yeah, so Stardust Memories leads into Zeta, and then Zeta leads to Zeta, and then that leads to. I feel like there's something in between there between that and Unicorn. Um, then Unicorn leads to the movie narrative, and then there's Hathaway's Flash. Then there's the
Oh, and there's
upcoming.
Gundam the Origin.
Oh yeah, but that fucks up the. You mean Zaku the origin because the Gundam doesn't really show up in it,
Yeah.
but you get to
Advent
see
of
the
the Red
development of
Comet.
Zaku. Yeah, I, it feels weird to keep calling him Char Aznavour when we know he's really Caspel because
Caspar Daikun.
yeah, the real Char is dead because Caspel killed him. And then it gets weird because then you have Quattro Bagina who looks like Char but definitely isn't Char. Um, Lieutenant Quattro Bagina, he's a pretty cool guy. That's definitely not Char. Oh yeah, and then I forgot about Char's counterattack, which is would be after his before Unicorn.
Well,
And then,
maybe if you live a separate identity for so long, you do become that person. Very much like a Lady Prospera from a witch from Mercury. Or should I say Duke Prospero of Milan?
he just wants to get revenge, and he's gonna use his elemental named Ariel to do it.
Yeah, and maybe Caliban when Caliban isn't busy being useless and a representation of native peoples who are being colonized by the English.
Elfin was the good guy all along. It's like, this is my island. You're the one that brought your feudal bullshit to me.
Yeah,
Why am I presented as an idiot for wanting you off this island? I was here first. So yeah, Witch from Mercury, its own timeline, and it's really borrowing from William Shakespeare's The Tempest.
mhm.
Um, now, is this just a publicity stunt to get theater nerds to watch Gundam? Did it work on you?
I don't know. Japan has a long history of adapting Shakespeare. Like when
Everyone has a long history of adapting Shakespeare.
yeah, but when William Perry forcibly opened up communication between Japan and the rest of the world, you know, like Japan started modernizing so they wouldn't be colonized and became colonizers themselves.
Oh
And
yes, as documented in the documentary The Last Samurai.
of course, The Last
The
Samurai.
100% factual Last Samurai.
Yeah, so there were literary competitions to try and adapt Shakespeare into Japanese poetry. And one of the most popular one was called A Springtime of the Cherry Blossoms, which was an adaptation of The Merchant of Venice.
So
But
you're
then,
saying they tried to colonize Japanese literature with William Shakespeare.
yeah, like India.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. This is a very pro Pan Asian episode, is what I'm getting.
Yeah, I only know one country that's trying to build a functional giant robot, and that is Japan.
Yes.
And that's why they're better.
But we have come together, we have united. You, a professional shit poster of anime and anime memes. and thoughtful scholar on everything in life from my personal experiences, and me, a dude who just started getting into Gundam based on your recommendations.
It's
And
because you're a filthy communist, and I know you like the politics.
okay, my political leanings aside, getting into the history, Japan has had a long time of adapting Shakespeare, most notably who's the guy who directed Seven Samurai? I feel terrible that I'm forgetting his name.
Okay. Akira Kurosawa. Fuck. Akira
Kurosawa.
Kurosawa. Yeah.
Kurosawa. He's adapted multiple Shakespeare plays into films, but has been subverting them, like Throne of Blood, which was Macbeth. He adapted the King Lear story into Ron,
Yeah.
which basically says, hey, you know that stick in a bundle thing? Yeah, if you're strong enough, you can break any bundle.
Yeah.
And now chaos. And maybe Witch from Mercury will be a subversion of the Tempest, which is ultimately a story about someone seeking revenge for a long ago slight, but eventually, through the magic of young love, through his child and the child of his enemy coming together, there is forgiveness and reconciliation, and everybody goes on their merry way, except Caliban, who gets his island back.
Yeah. So, thinking how every Gundam series I've watched ended, that would be the subversive take for the Witch of Mercury to go with.
Yeah, per your
And
last episode on the slow burn of Witch from Mercury, everybody dies, is what I'm picking up.
I mean, it's not a Gundam. Well, it's not like a mainline Gundam series without people dying.
A steep body count.
Yeah, depending on which. No, yeah, a lot of people die. I'm like, well, because like I'm thinking of like, well, in the original, not a lot. I was like, but I'm only thinking of like the main cast. Like they survive, but the supporting cast, it's like most of them die. And
Yeah.
if you're if your name is Zabi, you're dead.
Yeah, I saw a clip of someone's head getting blown off by torpedo, and that looked fucking badass.
You're gonna have to be more specific.
I don't know, it was a woman in a mask and a special helmet.
Okay,
She was
yeah.
like,
Oh,
Char?
that's literally like the end of the series. I mean, you said you watched The Origin. You should know who that is.
I can't remember. I've only seen the first episode. Like I said, I'm very slowly getting into it.
Yeah. Um, especially The Origin. I mean, yeah, it's about how Caspal becomes the Sharazan we know in Mobile Suit Gundam, but it's also about the politics that led up to the 1 year war and the early engagements. Um, and yeah, it's called Gundam the Origin, but you really barely see anything relating to the Gundam in at least the animated OVA series. I haven't read the manga whatever for it, but that is also like a retelling of the original Gundam series from 1979. Because yeah, like there's this meme where it's like a guy looking at a giant robot. It's like, oh, cool giant robot fight, and then they literally have like the point going over his head of like the politics and like war is hell. Like that's Gundam. So,
It is a good thing war is so terrible. Otherwise, we would love it too much. Robert E. Lee is burning in hell. Anyway, so I've broken down the Tempest into the three subplots because basically it starts with Prospero. He is the Duke of Milan. He is living in exile with his daughter Miranda, who is purer than life. Ariel, who is an elemental of the wind, who he keeps as a servant, and then Caliban, who lived on the island they were banished to, and he has been enslaved. His mother Sycorax created him. And Prospero begins a revenge plot to where his usurping brother, the current Duke of Milan, Alonso, and the guy who assisted him, King Antonio of Naples, are shipwrecked on the island. And he separates Ferdinand, the Prince of Naples, from the group. Miranda and Prince Ferdinand fall in love, and Prince Ferdinand is made to do innumerable chores, such as taking logs from one place to another place, until their sense of pride is broken down entirely, and then they are deemed suitable to marry Miranda. And then they go to an illusionary light show set by Prospero and his magic. In plot B, we have usurper brother Duke Alonso, his pal Sebastian, who is also traitorous. Sebastian is the thundercracker to Alonso's Starscream for you Transformer fans. King Antonio of Naples, token good dude Gonzalo, who's very idealistic, and two other dudes named Adrian and Francisco, who nobody really remembers because they don't contribute much. But basically, because of his Starscream syndrome, Alonso, Sebastian, and Adrian and Frank all decide we're going to kill Antonio because I guess I could become King of Naples if we get saved. And we'll kill Gonzalo because he's annoying and too good-hearted. And they mostly just wander around the island and get scared by Prospero and his magic until Prospero blackmails them into chilling out. And the King of Naples forgives Prospero forgives the King of Naples and gives up magic. Oh, and there's a court jester in the sea plot, a drunk butler, and Caliban attempting to overthrow Prospero, which may be a future plot if we get something on Mercury itself. But those are kind of the main plot lines. But basically, it ends up as kind of a Christian morality tale where magic is abandoned because it's all illusory, and forgiveness is the only thing that matters. Kind of like Merchant of Venice, but without the anti-Semitism. There is nothing here about real Japanese history where they attempted to establish a Jewish home state in Manchuria, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah, we'd have to see where the Witch from Mercury goes. Even though there is I don't think racial would be, but there's the tension between Earth and space, and Spacians and Earthians or whatever they call them. And I keep wanting to say Earthnoids and Spacenoids, like in the Universal Century timeline. Also hearing Shar just like, wow, we gotta bring humanity into space so they're not tied down by gravity of whatever he says to justify dropping a colony on the planet.
Yeah. But I think so far we've already seen the parallels in the show. You know, I keep calling her Airy, even though she is repeatedly called Soletta Mercury, just because I was going based off the prologue.
Yeah, but is she really airy? I don't know if you noticed the detail in episode 6 where they said that the events of the prologue were 21 years ago, and Soletta is supposed to be 16.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, fan theory is the original Aerie is pretty much the AI in Ariel. So, and then also Lady Prospero saying, "I trust my daughter." Does she mean the Gundam or Soletta? Because you mentioned like the magic that Prospero was using in the Tempest, but here the magic is essentially whatever the fuck is going on with the gun format.
Yeah, maybe suspended animation, that could also be another thing. But we are kind of dealing with that theme of illusions and double identities. While I was going through the character list from the Tempest, because I was trying to do like one-on-one with some of the characters, I I found that they do in that like illusory light show. They have a Roman goddess named Ceres show
Yeah,
up,
you get
who's the
in series.
goddess of the harvest,
Yeah.
and we have
Oh,
not Elon Musk Ceres. Okay, so I want to ask you one thing. So I get it that it's basically the future. We have reverted to space feudalism because corporate conglomerates have essentially become super states. We've seen that in our own history with things like the Dutch East India Company, which was allowed to run rampant in the Pacific and colonize and
yeah.
kind of set up their own kingdom without a country. Who are they making all of these military weapons for? Like the prologue mentions there might have been a war on Earth brewing, but it seems like Earth is being reverse colonized from by the space noise or by the Spacians in this case.
Okay, so this might be a roundabout answer, but when I was researching that first Gundam video, um, there was a line in Iron Blooded Orphans where they're talking about, oh yeah, they're not using mobile suits to pacify riots because that's overkill. In The Witch from Mercury, there's a like a cut. I think it was in episode 2 or 3. They cut to Earth where they're protesters, and they bring out mobile suits to put down the protesters. A bit fucking overkill, but um, yeah, if you have the giant robot and it's loaded with tear gas, those protesters have no chance. Um, that's and then especially the character of Choo Choo who has the big uh,
Yeah, the
Mickey
Princess
Mouse
Leia
like
pups.
things.
Yeah.
Who she, uh, at least in my interpretation of the story so far, she's kind of representing the attitude of Earth, like people that live on Earth towards Spacians. And it's like like her character is introducing those tensions. Um, uh,
So you're saying
so
Choo Choo is Caliban?
mm, maybe I like it. I don't know
It's
if
not
there's
a
going to be a direct one-to-one Caliban,
no.
but it's going to be like the idea of Caliban. It's like this is their place, and they're going to want to take it back. But it's not going to end like in the Tempest. It's going to be a big war. Um, this is just like my like a theory of where I think the story's going is one of the reasons Dylan Rembrandt is trying, and like pretty much all the Venerit group is trying to get rid of the gun format, is because in this series it's specifically referring to an interface of the pilot with the mobile suit. So the mobile suit essentially just becomes a second skin for them, um, and because of and so that makes it much more easier for the pilot to move around like an actual person instead of having to do like I have to put in this input to bring out my gun to shoot. It's just, oh, I just have to think about bringing my arm back to grab the gun, just as like you would as a normal person, so that
Yeah.
it's reducing time for pilot input because they're literally just using the mobile suit as a um as a second skin essentially.
Yeah, as
Um,
seen in the historical documents, I refer to surrogates, led by Professor Bruce Willis, and the film Inspector Gadget,
yeah,
which is arguably the plot that uh, Dr. Claw is after that technology.
yeah, yeah, and so like the fact that it's bringing out pilots, but like okay, that's our excuse for getting rid for pretty much massacring this entire colony to stop them developing this technology. Um, because if they're successful, like how because you see it in the show because the Ariel isn't burning out Suletta, she's just fucking dominating every single every single duel she's doing, and it doesn't even look like it's that hard for her because of the gun format. That's one of the things I really like about The Witch of Mercury is its explanation of what a Gundam is. Um, so yeah, and then and having a weapon like that can easily just take out the established militaries is going to disrupt the power. And if you look at history, people in power don't like giving up that power.
Yeah,
So
it's
it's
bad
kind
for
of like,
business.
yeah, it's like they're trying to look forward to that. And like we haven't really seen it that much in the show, but I feel like the subjugation of Earth, like in a capitalist system with that lower working class, is what's used to, ensure that the rich upper classes can live in comfort and never want for anything.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
would it sorry, I briefly lost my train of thought there. What it also really reminded me of is whenever there's like a big strike, even here in the US, how a lot of news media will just kind of ignore it, like the Kellogg strike or the impending
yeah,
rail workers strike, and it's just not talked about because they're all owned by conglomerations which do not want workers to strike.
yeah. Because if you have to pay your workers more, you don't get to you don't get to keep that money.
Yeah, it's very interesting because it's it's a really fascinating political drama because it doesn't really explain a lot. Like you and I have had to do a lot of interpretation just from what they've shown us, which is just the bare necessities
Yeah,
of Mother Nature's war crimes, to figure out what exactly is going on. Because Delling Rembrandt basically, he's just kind of brought in as a military spokesperson, and somehow he just kind of asserts himself. Like he even describes himself as being a king when they're doing the witch trial of Lady Prospera.
yeah, which goes into that corporate feudalism. He's the king of the Benneret group, and he has all these companies swearing fealty to him.
Yeah,
Uh,
at the same time, they're all trying to assassinate him, except maybe
yeah,
the Shoddyk group. They don't seem bothered if he is assassinated, but they do not want to take part in it.
yeah, they seem like the most normal business, normal business.
Like, why are we arranging assassinations? I am just trying to make a
I'm just
product.
trying to, yeah, just trying to run my business here. But that's also when you have those corporations that are, because like where is what is the government in this series? I think the closest thing we've seen to like uh the government taking action is when they are taking mobile suits uh to quell that protest.
Yeah.
And then who supplies the mobile suits? The
And
Benneret group.
how are they and how are their other conglomerations and group that is some kind of challenge? Do
Yeah,
they control a different part of Earth? It also reminded me of kind of the struggle of Australian settlers and colonizers. Because, like, are you familiar with Ned Kelly, like
no,
Australian outlaw? Basically, his family were sent to Australia from Ireland because the father stole pigs to feed his family. So then they were relocated, and because there were other older settler groups who had already colonized, they basically had an ingrained trust with the police to give anybody who came the worst land on the justification of, like, well, we settled the land, so now we get to rule it. All right. We got about 10 minutes left on this meeting. So shall we get into predictions?
I think the precursor aliens are going to come up and go, hey, this shit wasn't supposed to happen. They're going to send the 13th angel to merge with. I'm going to stop because I'm pretty much spoiling another
Yeah, I could
show.
not tell if this was an Evangelion reference or if
Yeah,
this
yeah,
was a
yeah.
Halo reference. So
Um, uh, I, and the reason my brain went to Evangelion is because it's another thing that took like uh Western concepts, like Witch of Mercury is taking a Western play and using its symbols to tell its story. Evangelion took Western religious symbols to tell its story. Um, so I don't. So like, as Evangelion doesn't just like play out the book of Genesis and doesn't show the end times, but it just uses those symbols. I think that's what's happening with the Witch of Mercury. Like I think I'm not going to be surprised if Suletta and Miorian actually develop real feelings and want to be with each other, especially after watching episode 8. There's just a shot of them on a scooter, and then Miorian rests her head on Soletta's back, and it's like, hey, that's are you queer baiting the audience, or is this actually going somewhere? But considering the source material, I think it is going to go somewhere, and then that's part of what the tragedy is going to be.
There was
Because
already that Romeo and Juliet shout out from episode 3.
yeah, it's I really think the story is going. Look at these happy people. We are going to ruin their lives.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, I don't know if there's going to be a second season because Japanese media seems to very much keep it confined to one-shot seasons of like, we're telling a full story arc and we might continue, but we tend to wrap
It's
things up.
yeah, it's a two core. So at least I read that was a two core. So it's gonna finish out the rest of the winter season at 12 episodes, and then it's gonna have another 12 episodes, I think, in the spring. So it's gonna be a total of 25 if you include the prologue.
Yeah.
Don't know if it's gonna wrap up the story. I'm I wouldn't be surprised if it did. That's enough time to tell its story, I think.
Yeah.
Um, there's not a lot of show. There's plenty of. There are a few that have gone up to like 52, like the original, but um, I'd rather it tell a better story than try to stretch it out.
Yeah. But I do agree with you. I think we will get the promise of a possible reconciliation only for it to shatter at the last minute because this isn't a play. This is Gundam.
Yeah, um, it's like, oh yeah, they end up together, but all their friends are dead, or like because the original Mobile Suit Gundam, it's about Amuro Ray is the pilot of the Gundam, and then you pretty much just see him get you spend like 50 over 50 episodes of him getting PTSD. Um, so uh,
Yeah, because
doesn't
I don't see Lady Prospera giving up the magic of Gundams as
no
some kind of ending of like, well, we were wrong.
yeah um,
Unless Ariel just becomes truly sentient and just decides to kill everyone.
well they released I think it was like a web novel that was just recently translated where it suggests that the Ariel is sentient
Oh, okay.
and knows about her plan. And while Ariel is like, yeah, I get it, please don't please don't do that to Selena. Which there especially with that character, there's gonna be that balancing arc of how do I get my revenge and how do I love my daughter.
Yeah.
And just seeing which way she tips is kind of like the dramatic tension that the character of the character.
Yeah. On the good side, though, at least they didn't adapt Merchant of Venice, in which case the main character would have been forcibly converted into Christianity after their daughter betrays them, and it would have been seen as a happy ending. Hooray!
Uh, I mean, besides the happy ending, that feels more in line with the war is hell theme.
Yeah.
Crushing your enemies and forcing them to convert to your ideals.
Yeah. It would be interesting to see if they do a class warfare theme as opposed to like a strictly between two rival nations.
I mean,
Like Earth
that's
uprises, and then everybody at the military school is like, "Congratulations, you're going to Earth. You must destroy them."
I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happens because it's like why else would you have this giant school dedicated to piloting mobile suits with the emphasis on dueling to be number one so that you can be the best mobile suit pilot so that you can murder as many people as you can. And then there is a bit of that class warfare already in the school with how the Spacian students treat the Earthborn students.
Yeah,
Earth,
and even
Earthborn students.
Soletta, who's from Mercury, that was an interesting conversation where they did the divide of like, well, she's from a planet,
Yeah,
not Earth, but a planet.
yeah. How does that fit into Shar Aznavour's ideals of bringing humanity into space? Mercury's in space from the perspective of Earth.
But Mercury knows the sin of gravity from the perspective of space.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to seeing more of the show, and I'm looking forward to hearing more of your thoughts about it, Robert. I just really hope there doesn't turn into some weird Timothy McVeigh track about the Gulf War by the end of this series.
I, I think it's just gonna be sad.
But
I'm ready.
we're going to be sad together.
At least we'll be alive, unlike probably what's gonna happen. What happens to all my favorite characters? They're either sad or they have PTSD. Oh no, well, I don't want to spoil Eighth MS team, but that's a that's that's one of
No,
the
I've seen a clip of a Vietnam like setting, and before I go into it, I'm just going to accept they are all probably dead.
Yeah.
It's like All Quiet on the Western Front. Don't get attached to anyone.
But you're gonna get attached to them because you can't help it.
Not unless I'm secretly a psychopath who wants to start military academies because I haven't accepted the end of the samurai.
Don't fucking call me out like that, motherfucker. How the fuck did you know about that? Just imagine. Mecha Samurai.